as a closing perspective. And if you'll stay with us, we have a special musical guest at the end. So that's our structure for today. On the next slide, we have our opening speaker, Fotini Iconomopoulos. Iconomopoulos. I apologize. Fotini is a negotiation expert. She's a friend. I'm so delighted that she is going to be speaking for us tonight. And Fotini, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you for that warm introduction. I'm really thrilled to be here. I am so thrilled to see the cool stuff that Nalini's been doing. And I think I was part of the first Connect the Dots, and it's certainly evolved since. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to come together and realize this theme of self-advocacy. And the thing I wanted to share with you, I'm a keynote speaker. I do a lot of storytelling on stage, but this is not a story I often tell. However, I have included it. I have a book that's right behind me that's coming out in about a month. And this I threw this story in at the very last minute, at the very end of my book. And I think it's important to share it with you today. I'm the hired gun. I'm the one that people call when Walmart is breathing down their neck, or Costco, or Visa, or a bank, or some oil company in Yemen. And I help high stakes negotiation scenarios. I help people through those high stakes negotiation scenarios. So you'd think that I'd be really good at negotiating for myself as well. And I am, to a degree. I mean, I grew up in a big fat Greek family. So anybody who's familiar with that type of environment knows that when you have a strict Greek dad like mine, you got to negotiate to get your way out of it, in essence. But the story I wanted to tell you about is about a scenario that didn't turn out for me. And I was working for a company who I found out was paying me less than my male peers. And this is coming from somebody who had already advocated for herself and had already tried to negotiate and made sure that she negotiated every step of the way. So my peers were complaining to me when they got promotions to my level that they were getting paid less than I was. They didn't know what my salary was. They just were complaining about their salaries. And it was an eye-opening experience for me, because I went, oh, wait a second. So that boss that I thought was a misogynist actually is a misogynist. So I couldn't not do something about it. It's just not in me. It's not in my DNA to sit back and take something like that. And I can't tell people to stand up for themselves without standing up for myself as well. And so I had a conversation with him where this was all on Skype. So this is not unfamiliar to me, this Zoom world, because I was living in Toronto, working for a company based out of New York with a boss who sat in London, and we were always doing these video things. And so I finally scheduled a meeting with him, and I said, hey, look, there's something I need to bring to your attention. It's come to my attention that I'm not being compensated the way my peers are. And of course, the first thing he said was, oh, well, you could get fired for talking about that at this company. And I said, no, actually, I can't. You might want to get more familiar with the law, because I can't get fired for telling somebody my salary here. That's not the way the law works. And then he said, well, we frown upon it here. I said, okay, well, then you might want to discuss that with the folks who are confiding in me about their salaries, because I've shared nothing. But again, that aside, it's come to my attention that I'm not being paid the way my peers are getting paid. And I can't go to sleep at night knowing that I haven't done something to correct that. And so this conversation continued, where he was basically filling me with lies, saying things like, I stuck my neck out for you and I've done everything I can for you, when I knew behind the scenes other folks in the executive boardroom were telling me some of the things that he was saying. So I was hearing the lies, knowing them, like bold-faced lies coming to my face. And yet I'm this negotiation consultant who's supposed to be able to work around people who are jerks. That is my livelihood. And so I continued this conversation, and I started to get really heated. I started to get really upset, to the point where we were in a yelling match with one another at some point. And then I had this out-of-body experience. I literally felt like I was watching myself from a balcony and looking down at this person having a conversation, an adversarial conversation with her boss on Zoom. And I just stopped and I said, thank you. And he was kind of taken aback, going, what? And I said, well, if you're telling me that you've done everything that you can for me and that you've stuck your neck out for me, then I guess all that's left for me to say is thank you. And you could see he kind of relaxed all of a sudden. And then I followed with, I'll take it from here. And he turned white, because then following thing he said was, well, I don't think you should take this up with HR, with our manager, the guy who was CEO of the company. And I said, well, if you've said that you've done everything that you can, and you said that you stuck your neck out for me, well, then I guess The rest is on me now to do something about it. So I was using his words against him in a sense. Like, if you're going to tell me you did something, oh, I am going to quote you on that, because there is now an accountability that you own when those words come out of your mouth. And so I was making sure that it's like Tai Chi, right? I was taking this energy and I was pushing it right back on him, anything that he was giving me. And I just felt more and more calm. As that conversation went on, I felt more and more calm, and I had more clarity about everything that was going to come out of my mouth. I slowed down. I wasn't moving as quickly as I was when I was getting really angry. And I had the clarity of going, okay, I got this. I am in control of this moment. You are not going to be able to take advantage of me. You are not going to be able to say, oh, she was irrational. She was too emotional. I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. I'm going to be logical. I'm going to quote you. I'm going to make you accountable, versus you being able to tell someone else a story that goes, oh, you should have heard the way she was acting. You should have heard the way she raised her voice. There was no way I was going to give him that gift that he didn't deserve. And I was going to make sure I was as credible as possible in that moment. But it took me a second to catch up, to allow my brain to have that moment of clarity. And now that's something that I teach to others, because it is that moment where you need to take control of that fight or flight response that comes in. It's that ancestral cave person thing that happens to us when we're feeling very emotional, when we're feeling very upset, when we're threatened in some way, whether it's our ego or we're physically threatened. All of a sudden, your fight or flight comes in and all rational thought leaves your brain. And that's what makes your heart start to beat a little bit faster and your palms start to get a little bit more sweaty. And all of a sudden, I just went, no, take a breath, press that mental pause button. And I found my coping mechanism in that moment. And I found my higher power to go, no, I'm going to do what's best for me right now, not what's best for him. Me yelling is what's best for him. But me having the clarity to listen effectively to what he's saying and use those words against him, that's what worked for me in the moment to gain control. I will tell you, spoiler alert, I did raise it to the CEO. It did not go well. It went very similar. But even in that conversation, a couple of weeks later, when he said, I don't know what you make, Fotini. This is something you need to discuss with your manager. I said, well, I have discussed it with him and it hasn't gone very far. And about 30 seconds later, he said, you know what, Fotini, I know what you make and you're being paid appropriately. I said, wait a second. A few minutes ago, you told me you didn't know what I was making. And now you're saying you do know what I was making. So which one is it? And again, it was me pausing instead of reacting. I was able to take his words and use them against him. And he got so flustered. And it wasn't that I got what I wanted out of it from a sense of, did they end up paying me more money? No. What did happen though is I got confirmation. I got confirmation and confidence and clarity about what was best for me in that moment. And as a result of being able to press my mental pause button and get that information out of them, that they're clearly liars, they are clearly people who don't have the same ethics and credibility that I have. It was the confirmation I needed. It was almost like the nail in the coffin to go, this job is dead for me. This work experience is now dead to me. And I will tell you, a few months later, I had already hired a lawyer, by the way, for all sorts of other discrimination stuff that had happened in that building. So I was actually quite lucky that I'd already hired that person and I had her in my corner, because November 7th, 2013, I'll never forget that day, I quit my job. And actually 2014, I quit my job. I didn't have a plan. I just went, okay, I've got the confirmation now that any day I'm doing anything but doing this is a better day than dealing with these people and dealing with this environment. And so I quit my job without a plan. I did have a severance package that I managed to negotiate thanks to having that lawyer on board and some of my skills as well. But when I made the announcement that I had quit the company, I had all of these people telling me, what can we do to help? When are you going to come work for us? And I went, well, I don't work for that company anymore. They said, we didn't hire the company. We hired Fotini. And so it was interesting because a few months later, after I took a breather, I took 3 months off and I traveled around the world and had the greatest time. And I came back refreshed and unwound from all of the things that had been winding me up for so long. I ended up starting a business accidentally. I just thought, okay, I'll do this favor for a friend until I have to get a real job. And 6 years later, it's very much a real job. And there's now a book that I've written on my shelf that's telling people about these experiences and hopefully helping people advocate for themselves. And the reason those opportunities came up was because I was using my negotiation skills. So not only was I pressing my mental pause button to deal with the assholes in my life, to be quite frank, I was also using these other negotiation skills. And they weren't about, puffing out your chest and proving to somebody how awesome you are. That's not what got me all of those phone calls and emails and people reaching out. It's the principles of persuasion that I tell people and I teach people all the time. It's we want to deal with people we like. And we don't like people who give us these big discounts. That's not why people were dealing with me. I was charging them the same thing they would have been paying my previous employer. We like people who have something in common with us. We like people who pay us genuine compliments because we can smell a rat, right? So if you showed up here with bedhead today and I started complimenting you on your hair, you'd go, what do you want from me, Fotini? Right? Because we can sense those things at a subconscious level. And we like people who are cooperative. And so that means pausing to think about things from their perspective. What are they going through right now? It means asking really great questions to find out a little bit more about them and their challenges and what is valuable to them. So when I think about my clients, the ones that I'm still working with today, I knew everything about some of the challenges that they were facing. I knew the professional ones as well as some of their personal ones at home. And it's not because I was telling them how awesome I was, it was because I was listening to them. When I was there in the offices with them, when they were telling me about these things, I was asking questions to probe a little bit deeper, and they felt comfortable enough with me because I demonstrated that we had something in common, that we had similar values, that we had similar interests, we had similar ethics. And when you can demonstrate those things to people, they want to deal with you because you are familiar to them and you are comfortable to them. And so I got so much out of the control that I learned to execute from those awful experiences in the workplace. But at the same time, I knew I was there for a reason. I was there because I enjoyed the relationships that I was building. So I was practicing these relationship building skills. And so when I learned from that moment, and I had zero doubt about it being time for me to go, thanks to that pausing clarity, I got to leverage the relationships. And I say leverage in a very positive way. I got to build deeper relationships. I still go to St. Louis every single year for a Christmas party because of the people that I made friends with on a gig, on a consulting gig. When you're locked up in one of those awful conference centers eating terrible food, you build friendships with people, you bond with them over those shared experiences. And so what I want you to take away from this is, how do you advocate for yourself? It's by having that mental clarity. And the reason it was safe for me to do that is because of the network that I had built. When I knew it was time for me to go, I had a soft place to land because I had 50 messages in my LinkedIn inbox going, what can I do to help? When are you going to keep working for me? So it's those two things going hand in hand to go, how do I make sure I have the clarity and the control over the situation that I want, that I'm being proactive and not reacting to everything happening? And how do I keep building those relationships that are going to support me, that network who is going to want to be there to help when things go off the rails? And so I hope that little story, it encourages you to want to stand up for yourself a little bit more, to be an advocate for yourself. I hope it gives you some how-tos in a sense of how to build those relationships and ask better questions and use that Tai Chi moment of using their words against them if you have to, instead of getting caught up thinking and talking at the same time. My hope for all of you is that you manage to connect those dots and take this to the next level and see your next challenge as a real opportunity, because I don't regret any of those asshole moments for a second. It gave me a platform, it gave me lessons, and it brought me in front of you today. And it led me to people like Nalini. So, I'm thrilled that it happened. As difficult it was at the time, I can say now I've had enough distance that I can say I'm thrilled that it happened. That book wouldn't be on my shelf if it hadn't happened. My opportunity to have a platform and share that with you wouldn't be here if it hadn't happened. So I wish you all the best for the rest of the day. I hope that you have a great time in the breakout sessions discussing how you can do this. If you want to learn more, if you want to follow me on social media, I share stories like this. I share tips all the time. You can go to FotiniIcon.com. You can find me at FotiniIcon on Instagram and on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And the book comes out in about a month as well. So there'll be other resources on the website attached to it. So planning documents, things that will help support you along the way in the future as well. So that's all from me. I'm going to pass the mic back to Nalini to take us to the next step.